She was 19 years old, pregnant, and standing outside in the rain with nothing but a garbage bag of clothes. The man who threw her out wasn't a stranger. He was her father, and the woman who watched from the window without saying a word was her mother. 23 years later, they showed up at her door. Not to apologize, they needed something from her. And what happened next broke me completely. Her name was Clara Whitfield, and for the first 19 years of her life, she lived inside a world most people only dream about. The Whitfield family was old money, generational wealth, the kind that doesn't get talked about at dinner parties because everyone already knows. Their estate sat on 400 acres outside of Charleston, South Carolina, a white colonial mansion surrounded by oak trees so old they had names. The staff called the main tree Eleanor, after Clara's grandmother. Clara used to sit under Eleanor every Sunday morning with a book and a cup of tea, feeling like the world was exactly the right size. She had her own horse, her own wing of the house, a trust fund worth $4 million waiting for her at 21. But more than any of that, she believed she had a family. Her father, Edward Whitfield, was a tall man with silver hair and cold blue eyes that could make a boardroom go silent just by entering. He ran Whitfield Industries, a conglomerate worth $3.4 billion spanning real estate, private aviation, and luxury hospitality. He was the kind of man who shook hands with senators and played golf with CEOs. The world respected Edward Whitfield. Clara simply loved him, the way only a daughter can love a father, completely, without condition, without armor. Her mother, Vivienne, was beautiful in that expensive, preserved way, always dressed perfectly, always smiling the right amount. She organized charity galas and sat on museum boards and told Clara regularly that a Whitfield woman must always be composed, always be graceful, and above all, always protect the family name. Clara tried. She really did. She went to the right schools, made the right friends, smiled in every family photograph. She was studying business at the University of Charleston, her father's choice, not hers, because she secretly wanted to be a writer. But she never said that out loud. She didn't want to disappoint him. Then she met Marcus. Marcus Webb was not a Whitfield kind of person. He grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. His mother worked double shifts as a nurse. His father had left when Marcus was 7 and never looked back. Marcus put himself through community college, then transferred to the University of Charleston on a full academic scholarship. He was studying architecture. He wanted to design affordable housing, homes for people who had nothing. He said once that he wanted to build the kind of apartment his mother deserved to live in, not the one she was forced to. Clara met him in the university library on a Tuesday afternoon in October. She had knocked an entire shelf of books onto the floor, reaching for one at the top. He was the only person who stopped to help her pick them up. They talked for 4 hours that day, about books, about dreams, about the feeling of being trapped inside a life someone else designed for you. She had never felt so seen in her life. They dated in secret for 8 months. She absolutely knew, that her father would not approve. Not because Marcus was a bad person. Because Marcus was poor, and in Edward Whitfield's world, that was the only thing that mattered. But secrets have a way of growing too large to hide. When Clara was 19 years old, she found out she was pregnant. She sat on the bathroom floor of her dorm room for 2 hours holding the test, shaking. Not because she didn't want the baby. She already loved it. She was shaking because she knew what was coming. Marcus held her hand and told her he wasn't going anywhere, that they would figure it out, that he would work 3 jobs if he had to, that their child would be the most loved child in the world. She believed him completely. What she didn't believe was that she could keep hiding, so she went home. She told her parents the truth, all of it. Marcus, the relationship, the pregnancy. She sat across from her father in his massive oak-paneled study, her hands folded in her lap, her voice steady, even though her heart was shattering, and she told him she was in love, and she was going to be a mother, and she hoped, she prayed, that he would understand. Edward Whitfield listened without expression until she finished. Then he stood up, straightened his cufflinks, and told her to get out of his house. She thought he was angry. She thought he needed time. She looked at her mother, Vivienne, who was sitting perfectly still on the leather sofa, composed, graceful. protecting the family name. Vivian did not say a single word. She didn't defend her daughter, didn't reach for her hand, didn't even look at her with apology in her eyes. She just looked away, out the window, at the garden, as if Clara was already gone. Edward called for the housekeeper to pack a bag. Just one garbage bag of essentials. Clara's cards were canceled before she reached the front door. Her phone plan, on the family account, was cut off while she was still standing in the driveway. She watched the lights of the mansion through the rain as the iron gates closed behind her. She was 19 years old, pregnant, and completely alone. She walked 2 miles in the rain to Marcus's apartment. He opened the door, took one look at her, soaking wet with a garbage bag over her shoulder, and pulled her inside without a single word. He sat her down, made her tea, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, and when she finally started crying, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere so deep it doesn't make a sound, he just held her. "We're going to be okay," he whispered. "I promise you, we are going to be okay." She wanted to believe him. They were not okay immediately. Nothing about those early years was easy. Marcus graduated and worked entry-level at an architecture firm for barely enough to cover rent. Clara, whose degree was unfinished, took waitressing jobs, then administrative work, then discovered that she had a gift for writing that she had always suppressed to please her father. She started a blog during her daughter's nap times, writing stories, real ones, raw ones, about love and loss and what family really means when you strip away the money and the gates and the expectations. People read it, then more people, then a publisher called. Her first book was published when her daughter Lily was 3 years old. It was a novel, a thinly veiled story about a girl from a wealthy family who loses everything and finds out that everything was nothing. It sold 40 copies in the first month. Her second sold 200,000. By her third book, Clara Webb, she had taken Marcus's name the day they married in a small courthouse ceremony with his mother as the only witness, was a New York Times best-selling author. By her fourth, she was being translated into 22 languages. She never called home. Not once. Her father never called her either. Her mother sent one letter, postmarked 3 years after the night of the rain, that said simply, "I hope you are well. Your father says not to write back." Clara framed it, not out of sentiment, as a reminder of exactly what she had survived. Marcus's career grew steadily. He started his own firm at 34, won a National Design Award at 37 for a community housing project in Atlanta. They bought a beautiful home in Savannah, not a mansion, not an estate, but a warm, light-filled house with a garden and a big kitchen and a porch where Clara wrote every morning. Lily grew up knowing she was loved, knowing exactly what her parents had sacrificed, knowing that their family, just the three of them, plus Marcus's mother who lived nearby, was built on something real. They were not billionaires. They were happy, which, as Clara would later write in her fifth book, is infinitely rarer. Clara was 42 years old when they showed up. It was a Saturday morning in April. She was on the porch with her coffee and her notebook. Lily, now 22 and studying literature at Columbia, was home for the weekend. Marcus was inside making breakfast. The smell of bacon and coffee was drifting through the screen door. It was the kind of morning that feels like a reward for surviving hard things. Then a black car pulled up outside. Clara watched over the rim of her coffee cup as the door opened. Her father stepped out first. He was 74 now. The silver hair was white. He moved slowly, carefully, with a cane she had never seen before. Behind him, Vivienne, still beautiful, still composed. But something was different, something around her eyes, a hollowness, the look of a woman who has had a very long time alone to think. Clara did not move from her chair. She watched them open the garden gate, walk up the path, stop at the bottom of the porch steps. Her father looked up at her with an expression she had never once seen on his face in all her 19 years of loving him. He looked ashamed. "Clara," he said. His voice was smaller than she remembered. She took a slow sip of her coffee. "What do you want?" she said quietly. He was dying. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 3. He had perhaps 8 months, the doctor said, maybe less. Whitfield Industries was in crisis. His son, Clara's younger brother Nathaniel, who had been groomed his entire life to inherit the empire, had turned out to be catastrophically bad at business, reckless investments, A fraud scandal that was quietly settled. 2 failed marriages that cost the family enormously in settlements. The company was hemorrhaging money. The board was losing confidence. The $3.4 billion empire was now worth less than $800 million and falling. There was one thing, one legal mechanism, that could stabilize everything. Their grandfather's original trust, established in 1962, had a clause that required unanimous family agreement to restructure the board. Edward needed Clara's signature. That was why they came, not to apologize, to ask for something. Clara listened to all of it without expression. When her father finished, she set down her coffee cup very carefully on the small table beside her chair. "So in 23 years," she said, "you never once called, never once asked if I was alive, never met your granddaughter, never sent a letter that wasn't my mother telling me not to write back." Her father said nothing. "And now you need my signature." Silence. "I'd like you to leave," Clara said. "Please close the garden gate on your way out." They didn't leave immediately. Her father went back to the car. He was tired. She could see it. The cancer already stealing his size. But Vivian stayed. She stood at the bottom of the porch steps for a long moment. Then she sat down on the bottom step. Something Clara had never in her life seen her mother do. Sit somewhere undignified. Somewhere without decorum. And she put her face in her hands. And Vivian Whitfield, who had never once in Clara's memory let her composure slip, began to cry. Not elegant crying, not dabbing with a handkerchief crying, real crying. Ugly and heaving, and full of something that had clearly been locked up for a very long time. Clara watched her. She did not move. After a long time, her mother looked up. Her mascara was ruined. Her face was blotchy. She looked for the first time like a real person. "I have thought about that night," Vivian whispered. "Every single day for 23 years. Every single day, Clara. I watched you walk out of those gates, and I told myself your father knew best, that it would blow over, that you would come back when you were ready, that the family name, the estate, She stopped, pressed her lips together. "I told myself so many lies for so many years." Clara's hands were very still in her lap. "I have read every one of your books," her mother said. "Every single one. I have a first edition of all 5. I keep them in your old bedroom. I read the dedications every time. Clara's dedications. All 5 books, every single one dedicated to the same 2 people. To Marcus, who stayed, and to Lily, who made it worth it. Never to her parents. Not once. The absence of their names, that was its own kind of letter." "I don't expect forgiveness," Vivian said quietly. "I came because your father asked me to, and because I am a coward, and I have always done what your father asked. But I want you to know what I did that night, what I didn't do. There is no day that has passed where I haven't known it was the worst thing I have ever done. You were my daughter. You were standing in the rain, and I looked away." The porch was very quiet. Clara's coffee had gone cold. "Lily is inside," Clara said finally, her voice very careful, very measured. "She's 22. She's brilliant. She wants to be a novelist. She has your eyes, actually. I always noticed that, and never knew what to do with it." Vivian looked up slowly. "If you want to meet her," Clara said, "I'll ask her if she's willing. I won't force her. I won't perform a reunion for you, but I'll ask." Her mother nodded. She couldn't speak anymore. "The signature," Clara said, "I need to think about. Not because I care about Whitfield Industries. I don't. But because decisions like that deserve more than one morning. You can come back next Saturday, 11 o'clock. I'll have an answer." She didn't sign it, but she didn't refuse either. She had her lawyer draw up a counter-agreement. If she provided her signature, 30% of whatever value was recovered from Whitfield Industries would be placed in a charitable foundation dedicated to funding affordable housing projects run jointly by Clara's foundation and Marcus's architectural firm. She named the foundation after Marcus's mother, who had taken in a soaking wet 19-year-old girl without asking a single question and made her tea. Her father, with 8 months left to live and no leverage whatsoever, signed it without argument. She met with him twice more before he died. They were not warm meetings. They were not the reunion that movies are made of. There was no dramatic embrace. No tearful speech where he told her she was right, and he was sorry, and he wished he could take it all back. But in their last meeting, 3 weeks before The end, when he was in a hospital bed and the big silver-haired certainty of him had been reduced to something fragile and small. He looked at Clara and said very quietly, "You turned out better than I deserved." It wasn't enough. It wasn't close to enough. But Clara held his hand anyway. Because she was not him. She had never been him. And she refused, even at the very end, to become someone who could look at a person suffering and simply look away. Edward Whitfield died on a Thursday morning in November. Lily flew home from Colombia. Marcus made dinner. Clara's mother-in-law came over and sat with them all evening, the way she always had, quietly, solidly, like something that does not move in storms. Vivian came to the house once more 2 months later. She sat in the garden with Lily for 2 hours. Clara watched through the kitchen window, not close enough to hear, just close enough to see. She watched her mother laugh at something Lily said, genuinely laugh, surprised by it, and something in Clara's chest moved that she didn't have a name for yet. She would write about it eventually. She always did. Her 6th book came out the following spring. The dedication read, "To Marcus, who stayed, to Lily, who made it worth it, and to the woman who looked away and the long, hard road back to looking." It was the dedication that made people cry the most. It was the dedication that made it #1. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Echoed Mind Stories for more powerful stories that stay with you long after they end. Clara never got the apology she deserved. She never got those 23 years back. She never got to be the little girl under the oak tree who believed her father would always protect her. But she got something her father, with all his billions, never managed to find. She got a life that was entirely, completely, unapologetically hers. And sometimes that has to be enough.